I don't even know what we're doing. It doesn't even matter.
I'm just gonna record.
We're gonna capture
I don't
everything.
even know what we're doing.
Everything.
Man, the Cade Crusader just likes chaos. Holy. What up, though? Welcome to Koolaid and the Murph, because God damn it, man.
Yes! Chipmunks!
I'm your host, Sean, the Chipmunk. Hey, man. It decides to work now. I like nothing.
Let's go.
Koolaid life doesn't love me. It doesn't. Anyway, I'm your host, Sean Murphy, alongside my guy, the Cade Crusader for now, but normally joined by my guy, DetroitKoolAid. My guy, it's good to see you, dude.
Let's go. Let's rock. Let's rock. Man, you know what? I'm very excited to be doing this with you, man.
Oh.
And yes, I am talking in my Cade Crusader voice.
I was like, at first, I was like, man, this is deep. And I was like, oh, this is the Cade Crusader. Oh,
and
my
yes,
gosh.
Merch
Man.
will be hitting the store soon.
Ooh, oh.
Obviously,
Man,
in all pigments.
You're going to be in all pigments. He comes in all creeds, all colors, all shapes and sizes.
Sir.
Oh my gosh. Koolaid, it's good to see you, man. Dude, I went up, I worked out this morning when I woke up. I'm like, what is, like, I didn't realize my legs could move before 7 a.m. I'm like, what is happening? I didn't realize people actually got up in the morning and went to the gym. That is a thing that people enjoy to do. That's a concept to me that's new.
Listen, man, when I saw the text message, I was like, you know what? We got to make this happen. Let's rock. Even though there's like literally nobody else awake right now. Like, why does bro? I live by a freeway. I don't even hear cars driving by right now.
We are in demon hours right now, Koolaid. like if we are like literally, quite literally, everyone else right now is either just getting to work or just rolling out of bed. And so the fact that we're up here ready to, you're just adding more elements to it as you go. Don't think I'm not watching you. This guy's going to be the death of me. But Koolaid, man, a lot's happened since we last talked, dude. Lots of stuff in the culture world, in the sports world.
We'll get
Koolaid.
We'll get serious for a minute.
Man. It's good to see you, man. Dude.
Well, you know, just fighting crime by night.
Oh,
and talking Pistons in the early morning when absolutely nobody cares.
Man, and it's great too that they decide, like, whenever we're going to get up early in the morning, that's when they have to play in the West Coast. So I just appreciate that, that they're accommodating with their schedule. Now, in all seriousness, Pistons, as of we're recording last night, the Pistons beat or fell short the Dallas Mavericks 111-105. Much better defensive effort than what we've seen of late. Because Koolaid, it's not been great on the defensive end. One thing I've found that's really interesting, and it's like an interesting trend that I don't think a lot of people have brought up. Somehow this team is somehow like better on the road than they are at home. Have you noticed that as at this current point, they have more wins on the road than they do at home? It seems like they're in more competitive games when they're on the road. Like, it's not usual for a young team to win more on the road than it is at home. And also to have those types of performance. Obviously, I would say, like, if you want to pick apples to oranges on which one was worse, the Bucks game or the Rockets game, you could pick both for each, for unique reasons. But I just want to know, where's your head been at? Because I know a lot of people have been chirping. I know I even made some videos and was talking about. I know you've made some podcasts and done a lot of writing and coverage, and and unlike quite a lot of people, you have the luxury of being around these people, being around these players, these coaches, and being in the press conference room a lot of nights when they are talking. So I would love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, the sense that I get is a sense of staying the course. They recognize that they've had some hits and that things haven't gone the way that they have hoped and the way that they wanted it to. They start off the season with this mantra of, let's compete every night. We're ready to go out there and learn to compete. We're entering our competing stage. And then injuries happen. I mean, even before Cade Cunningham, injuries happened to Marvin Bagley, who was a central piece to their pick and roll game, to their offense in general. And the reason why that matters is because of exactly what Bojan Bogdanovic was talking about. Hey, shout out to Sean Murphy too. Hat tip to you, brother. Made sure he got that news over to me bright and early in the morning. He says he don't get up in the morning, but whenever there's news going on, Sean makes sure, man, we be up like, hey, bro.
Listen, I'm just a madman. People will they'll send me something like an article we'll have released like 5 minutes ago, and they're like, "Did you see this?" I'm like, "Yep, seen it, read it." Borderline.
I don't even send Sean nothing.
no, I'm just a obsessive freak. But to your point, it does sound like they're staying the course. But also, I think it's the important thing that they're highlighting is that how much of a marathon it really is to not only endure an NBA season, but build a culture and an NBA roster, right? I think one of those things, to your point, in order for Bojan talked about in the report that you're referring to is a report from Hoops Hype, where they gathered their latest their latest buzz and news on the trade deadline. And so this is actually from their editorial staff at Hoops Hype, and this is actually a direct statement from Bojan Bogdanovic, where he said, and I quote, "Having conversations with the club, Troy and the owners, they assured me that we're going to be great next year," Bogdanovic told Hoops Hype. "We have a lot of cap space to sign great players. We're going to have a high pick again, so that's going to help us a lot. We have a great young group of guys. When Cade went down, that kind of hurt us big time. We were thinking that maybe we'd be fighting for the play-in tournament, but when he went down, he was our main guy. All our offensive strategies were connected to him. When he went down, our season, we've had a lot of ups and downs without him." And I think to your point, like the Marvin Bagley injury was big, but I would argue the injury that I think none of us talked about that turned out to be huge was the Alec Burks injury, because Koolaid, once he's come into the lineup, the Pistons went from being the worst bench in the league to one of the highest scoring benches in the league. If there was a roster,
better shooting teams in the league as well.
Right. And so if you're actually fully healthy with this roster at the beginning of the season, with the way that Cade was playing when he was getting significant minutes on the court, there's already a lot here to be optimistic about. I understand
the quote you read, that was from our Woodward Pistons table talk, right? From the summer or from earlier in the season when they got all injured and everything, or from really pick a time during the season?
Oh, no, that wasn't a quote from us, but that was from Bojan. But it sounds a lot like us, doesn't it? It almost sounds exactly like something we've been saying for a year now?
Oh, you mean that the loss of Cade Cunningham was a big loss? That he literally, whether anyone out there believes he's a star or not, the Detroit Pistons thought he was, and they catered everything around him. They signed Bojan to be able to give him that punch, that absolute punch, while they're allowing younger guys to get ready. And when you lose some of these other people that you are depending on to be a part of your normal rotation and contribute, that's going to affect things, especially with the role and how impactful we see people like Isaiah Stewart. Losing just him for even a game, let alone the games he's missed. Sheesh, man. And they've been a tiny team getting beat up in the middle. Where they had a lot of their injuries outside of Cade, in the middle.
And when you are a young roster, when you are one of the rebuilding teams in the league, the construction of your roster is inherently flawed. Mm-hmm. It is, the conception of it is flawed because obviously, if you're going to want to win games, you want a ton of older guys with experience who have done this for a long time that know the ropes and how to win on a night-to-night basis. This roster has a lot of talent, but it doesn't necessarily have that, that experience. And it's with Cade, I would say the biggest thing that's missing, obviously we can look at everything that's on the box score and the offensive numbers and everything that he contributes from that standpoint. We're just missing that on the court coach, that voice, that presence that can get guys back into things. And I know we've seen Isaiah Stewart take a more vocal role this season. I know we've seen, a lot of guys step up, and we have some solid veteran leadership in the locker room, but it's a different thing when you have that guy on the court.
Talking about modern day
exactly, man.
Restoration.
Exactly. Right? And even it was even when we traded Chauncey for Allen Iverson. It's you someone where you see that talent. It's a different thing when you have that person.
I just said that like it didn't like nothing.
Bro, oh no, it hurts. I'm dead inside. I'm numb. Don't worry. If it was after
Woo.
9 a.m., I think my body would have processed how angry that makes me.
Look, bro, 9 o'clock is gonna come, and you're just gonna break out in absolute
Oh, you're just
agony
gonna,
and pain, like,
you're just gonna get a call from me, and you're just gonna hear "son of a bitch."
Oh man, I'm like, dang, it just hit him.
They drafted Rodney Stuckey.
Hold on.
Oh man. Look at that. Look at that.
Shout
Man,
out
by the
Joji.
way, shout out to Lindsey Hunter. It's been cool
Yes.
seeing him at the network. I tried reaching out I still got to get in contact with Lindsey, man. Like, shout out, man.
We gotta get him on this extravaganza.
Oh, absolutely. I would love that. I would love that. But
Sheesh.
Kool-Aid, let's talk about the other piece of that, which is that where he said, and I know people are focusing a lot on his wording, and I think that's just because, for a lack of better terms, we get bored. But Bojan said, they assured me that we're going to be great next year. And, from the sounds of it, that says what we were even referring to before the season, which was, when the Pistons ultimately did decide to go get Jalen Duren and, make the moves that they did, and, and bringing in Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks and taking the salary of Kemba Walker, they deferred a lot of that free salary cap space that they had this last offseason to next offseason to give them even more space to sign even more talent, but with the sacrifice of a worse roster this season. That they did make that decision. But we talked about how even before this season, that even though this was a year to compete and to develop and to learn, how next year was really when all along they've been planning to push their chips at the table. And listen, it's not just what you and I have been saying. It's what's been reported. It's what's been like,
Echoed from the franchise itself, the organization itself. Like, the people have stated it. Dwayne Casey said after these injuries, now this has moved into get these young guys ready because we can't be here next year. So it's like, as long as the organization is preaching that, I know a lot of people have gotten upset with people who aren't absolutely ripping this organization a new shred. They want us to come on here and say this team is horrible, this roster is horrible, and it's just like, well, I don't want to say it's horrible, it's not horrible, but when it's in transition, what is it supposed to be at this stage? And as long as the organization can admit that and show us that there is a way forward, like, Sean, what if they were saying all of this stuff like, yeah, we got a future, but it was like every year the Stan Van Gundy era, no cap space, dead money, Josh Smith still on the books, not, all of our cap space is here. Like, minimal dead,
we got a
money.
future. Don't worry, guys. We traded for Avery Bradley this offseason.
Actual draft pick. Look, our previous draft picks are panning out, like things like that. This is a completely different era. So when they state, hey, listen, this summer we're going out and it's going to be fantastic. Like, the NBA is fantastic. I believe them. And he didn't just sit down with the team. He also said, the owner was there. Tom Gores is ready to win, bro. He got here ready to win. And that's what, honestly, with the mix of the passing of the owner, shout out Bill Davison, legendary
shout out
and
my
revolutionary.
I was
about to say, I was looking through. I followed the cat around the screen.
He was just fully showing his asshole to the camera for like 30 seconds. That was the whole thing. But anyway,
it's like, Sean will not get all of this time. He's like, wait, did I see Batman?
But like, yeah, like, it's like, yeah, like, to your point, like, I think like when people are like, why aren't you tearing this organization a new shred? Why aren't you being, it's like, why aren't you being so negative? Things are so bad. Well, I think, like you're saying, context matters. And, like when you bring up the Stan Van Gundy era, it's what that era represented, which was the fact that this team was one of those middling teams in the league. And we talk about like people are like, oh, it's unacceptable that we haven't won a playoff game since 07-08. Well, the reason why we haven't won a playoff game since 07-08 was because of those years of negligence and mediocrity. The reason why we're in that position is because we tried to keep piecing and putting together rosters of players who had talent, but were out of their primes. I mean, listen, as much as I love Derrick Rose, we got Derrick Rose 6 years after we wanted Derrick Rose. As much as I love Blake Griffin, we got Blake Griffin 4 years after you wanted Blake Griffin. That's just the reality of it all. And so, like, when push comes to shove, when this franchise proactively takes the step of, we've been doing this wrong. We've not been building the Pistons. We're gonna build the Pistons. We're gonna do it right. And they've gotten as much, if not more, young talent than any young roster in the rest of the league, with less assets to start their rebuild than any other team by far. I'm not going to be pissed when the number one player goes down due to injury in a team of a ton of 21, 22-year-old guys are getting beaten up by the best players in the world. I'm just not going to be surprised. I'm sorry.
Let me put an asterisk on that. It wasn't that he went down due to injury.
This entire season is put an asterisk on that.
Yeah, the whole season. Tayshaun agrees. But it's like, you got to think about it. Cade played through this last year. He was going to play through it this year, asked to play through it this year. The team said, look, bro, we have a plan to be winning next year. If you take this surgery right now, you can be playing pain-free by next year. Imagine how scary that will be. You just came off of a 28-9-8 stretch, bro. That was what was appealing and alluring. So this team is it's not just free agency. It's not just the cap space. It's not just the draft capital. It's not just having Troy Weaver. It's that this organization is even telling their people like Marvin Bagley and Cade Cunningham, you know what? Go and get ready now, because I need y'all practicing by the end of the season, which Cade Cunningham already starting to do.
And I'm really glad you said that, because that's actually right where I wanted to bring it next, because Johnny Kane said on Bally Sports last night, during the broadcast of Mavericks Pistons, that Cade Cunningham is going to be returning to basketball activities in March. Now, Kool-Aid, I'm not a mathematician, but as of recording, tomorrow is February, and February is 2 months of the year. March is 3 months of the year. So 2 plus 1 equals 3. That means he's only a month away from returning to basketball activities. And I have on good authority that he should be able to get back in the gym and be ready to fully work 2 weeks after the season's done.
And I have on good authority that February is not even a full month. He'll be back soon. Like, think about it, man. It's like,
technically, isn't it a full month? Because isn't like a month, like technically, like at least 4 weeks, and that's like 28 days, and 28 days is 4 weeks.
I guess. Okay, are we gonna allow this? I tell you, we allow it.
We act like February is this like extremely short month. It's only like 2 days shorter.
Wait, is it a leap year? No, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
even that makes sure.
If this was a leap year, like that would almost be like a mockery from God. Like, hey, this terrible year that you have to endure, it's a day longer. You have to wait a day longer to get to the lottery light at the end of the tunnel. And like I think, I think like with that, like hearing like the interviews and the conversations of the fact that like Cade is starting to be pain-free, and the fact that it is being felt as like a blessing in disguise. Like the fact that those conversations are being had like that early after a surgery, it's inherently encouraging.
Yep. It is, and it's what you want to see. And talking about Cade Cunningham, I want to shift real quick, because Killian Hayes, he's been back on the bench, and it's kind of two things I want to talk about in this. It's not just that he's been back on the bench playing that backup point guard role, but it's also been that Jaden Ivey has been playing that starting point guard role. And I wanted to be able to get your quick thoughts on both of them. I'm going to be doing kind of an article on their point guard tandem and what the Pistons could be looking at for next year as it relates to their 3-guard rotation and how all of this fits. We all wanted some like an auxiliary ball handler on the court with Cade Cunningham, an auxiliary playmaker, not just someone who can handle the ball, but auxiliary playmaker as well. And we know that, Killian Hayes is going to be slotted to come off the bench next year. So I actually applaud this move of putting people in the roles and in the positions and playing with the players to build that chemistry up with the lineups that they may be with. Yep. I applaud that move, but I wanted to be able to get your takeaway on what you thought about it. I know it was kind of subtle. He's back on the bench, and what you believe Jaden Ivey's been up to and where you think he's going as he's adding these point guard skills.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality of it is when you're a team that only has 13 wins on the season, I don't think there's a starting lineup that you ever feel like you have to be married to. And I think the reality
Mhm.
of it is when you're, especially when the struggles are starting on the defensive end, there's no lineup that's safe. And you can make the argument, well, if you're putting together a lineup, wouldn't you want Killian to be starting if you're struggling on defense? But the reality of it is, I mean, listen, the opportunity for Jaden Ivey to get those number one touches, to have the ball in his hands, to lead things for the offense down the stretch for the rest of the season, and to pour into his development. Because the reality of it is, when you look at what these players are now and where they can potentially be, I mean, Kool-Aid, we talked about how far Killian has come this season and how significantly better he's been in stretches. He's still only averaging 9.9 points a game. Like, you know what I mean? Like when push comes to shove, like, I like the median and more likely like what Killian Hayes is like a 13-6 guy, which is a great thing to have off your bench. Like I
Yep.
think and also if you look at the context of what you're allowing these guys to do, you're surrounding Killian with shooters, and you're surrounding Ivy with shooters. And I think especially a lot of times, I think we almost saw, like Ivy and Killian, like they're almost like whenever they were on the court together, there was just an inherent, like one of them had to take the back seat over the other because, there isn't that Cade where, he can play so well without the ball. You know what I mean? So I think, I don't expect it to be, do I expect it to be like a forever thing? Like, I'm not entirely sure. Like, I think, I think we could definitely see a lot of different changes. I will say, I think Ivy has had a lot of really promising moments, in the starting lineup, and especially like before he even fouled out last night, he was dealing pretty well against Luka. He was holding his own in pretty decent like pretty decent ways. So like I listen, I think like I know a lot of people are, really tied to, like Killian's development. And I know a lot of people are still hanging on to like I think there's just this expectation still that Killian's this guy that he's just not. And I think just when push comes to shove, like you're giving both of these guys still significant amount of runway to develop and to grow. It's just
Mhm.
one starting over the other. If we're being honest, the Pistons just have more reason to pour into their rookie fifth overall pick with insane athleticism in a high ceiling over the guy who they're going to have to consider paying in a year, who who for the first 2 years was statistically one of the worst shooters in the league, right? Like that's
Yeah.
just the way it is.
Yeah, but I'm sitting here looking at the box score now. It didn't change much either. He
Right.
still led the team in field goal attempts, which honestly, I want to see Killian Hayes shooting. I don't want to see passive Killian Hayes. I want to see him looking for his shot because
Yep.
it sets up his playmaking even more. And he still got 29 minutes. Obviously, when Cade Cunningham comes back, those types of things change. But what the Pistons are showing is that Killian Hayes is still an integral part of this team. They're just putting him in his role, like you stated, putting him in his proper place to be able to be surrounded by some shooters. And I think that on this lineup, his defense, along with Livers and Knox, and in this lineup, Stu coming off the bench, allows these guys to come in and really, really, really change the complete pace and tone of the game. With
Right.
Jaden Ivey starting, what I noticed the Pistons doing, which I really, really like, is off of makes, they're able to absolutely. So if an opponent makes a shot, they're right back down the court in a blink of an eye because Ivy is right down there quickly, man. And it was awesome. Even if he wasn't shooting the ball, you could see like there was one play, and I'm gonna try and go back and watch the game again, to see if I can clip it or something of that nature. But Luka had come down and scored. The Pistons went down quickly and scored. Somebody else came down and scored. The Pistons, Jaden Ivey again came down so fast, passed it up the court. When he got down there, he curled around, passed it to somebody else, and Luka was defending that person. His face was flush red, and he was like, like, and I was like, yes, like, yeah, I love this. And then the Pistons scored, and that was while they were controlling the game. When they kind of went away from that fast action, just let Ivy go, is when the game started to slow down. And the reason why they got away from that, and this is going to be on Ivy and his maturation, is because there were a couple of bad turnovers, a couple of plays that were sped up, a couple of plays where the Pistons started to not really look like themselves
And then
as the Mavericks started to kind of look more like themselves.
yeah, and then they almost had to as well because of the foul trouble. And
Yeah.
And it was particularly, like it was particularly frustrating seeing his 6th foul, the way that he went out of the game. Like it was, like I love seeing the aggression. I love seeing the will to want to dodge a pick and get, but it's like, man, there was 6.5 minutes left in that game. You quite literally just came down the court from hitting a clutch bucket. Like these are one of those moments where, when you
Yeah.
sit down on the bench, you got to go, man, I can't let that happen again. And also the other thing to add as well, like like we look at, what everything that the Pistons could have done better last night. Obviously, Luka Doncic scoring, 53 points isn't great, but when you consider that's Dallas's entire offense, like it's not entirely surprising. But if you look at the box score and if you look at the team stats, Dallas won by 6. They had exactly 6 more free throws than the Pistons in this game. So if you want to break down like where this game was won and lost, I mean, those little mistakes. If
Yep.
you make if you bite on 3 less pump fakes, that's a tie game.
Mm-hmm. And to just kind of to back that point up, when you look at the Nets game, Kyrie Irving scored 40 points. I was looking at this game, and I remember when Doncic scored 40 points with like 3 minutes and 30 seconds left in the third quarter.
Mhm.
And I was like, yo, are the Pistons going to be able to hold on? At the time, they were winning by like 6 or 8 points and beat another 40-point score. And ultimately they beat the Nets because they look like absolute madmen, bro. I said that they look like a team full of Tasmanian devils, just out there diving on the floor, diving on for every loose ball, diving on fans, bro. Like 3 or 4 sets of fans got dived on. The cameraman, shout out the cameraman. Oh my gosh, man, I'm gonna get his name. We're gonna shout him out on here next time. He gets beat up every game from Bally Sports. Jaime hit him, Alec Burks hit him.
Oh.
Like that was what was going on in the Nets game where they were absolute just like, bro, stealing the ball, blocks, everything in another, bro. It was wild. And they just kind of stopped or slowed that down against Dallas. Like
And
somewhere in that fourth quarter, that type of play just seemed to die out.
and in my opinion, I think, like when we talk about, like a lot of those things, I completely just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. You're good, man. Because we were talking about how aggressive they play, getting after all of the 50-50s and the loose balls and such,
Yep.
and they beat a 40-point score doing that against the Nets, but
Thank
they
you. I
couldn't do that against Dallas.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I'm a dum dum. Jaden Ivey after the game interview with Johnny Kane, and and talked about how they responded, like and the effort and the intensity that they brought in that Nets game. And I remember Jaden Ivey saying, "Man, I'm really proud of our effort tonight. Really, really glad with how we played and the intensity we brought. Great win." And I was like, I was waiting for him to say, next game's got to be better or got to do it again. You know
Gotta
what I
do
mean?
it
Like
again.
like whenever
Yeah.
like you hear those types of interviews, generally you hear the elite players and the best players in the league, they'll say tonight was tonight was good, tomorrow's got to be better.
Yep.
And when we talk about like the adjustments to the NBA, and listen, I quite frankly at the time I thought I was maybe overthinking it a little bit, and then I saw them give up 70 points in the paint to the Rockets, and I was like, no, maybe there's some validity to that point. And
Yep.
I think
82 paint points to the Bucks.
yeah, and and like they got to 20 points in 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes.
That Rockets game was a
Yeah,
tough watch, bro. We were all there in the arena, like everyone was like, yo, they're really about to lose this game. Like it was tough, man. The fans in the arena, people were walking out, Sean, looking just like how you are right now. People were walking out, just literally, everyone had that same expression. It
and
was just
it,
like,
Yeah, and it's not to give disrespect to the Rockets because people are like, "Oh, they're also bad. We're also bad." You can't trash, but again, context matters.
yeah,
And you look at the morale of the organization coming into that game. You look at the 3 players that were missing out of the lineup coming into that game. There
yeah,
was just,
matters.
it's like I get the Pistons are missing people too, but it's like, when you're but it comes back to this. Not only do you have to take care of the quote unquote gimmies in this league, or like, the games that you're quote unquote supposed to win, which by the way, there's no gimmies in this league. but also you're supposed to take care of your home court. And at the very least, you can't have those efforts on your own home turf. You just can't.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where we talk about those things that it's like, that can't happen. And those are the growing pains. And those are the things that, as you keep going on. But like the beauty of it all is like in 30 games, the playoffs begin, the clock resets, and like all that's going to matter is what, where they're going to end up drafting.
Yeah, where the
How
ping-pong
much
balls fall.
space is going to be available and what they're going to be able to do next. Because when you do say, yeah, that can't happen, in my opinion, where that goes to, because people are like, oh, well, we got to fire someone. In my opinion, it's like, well, kind of. What I think is we have to look at the players that on this team that have talent and that are really good players, and which players on this team are Detroit Pistons. And I think that's what the rest of the season's about. And I think from there that gives Troy Weaver the clarity of who to move on from and who's gonna come back and be a foundational part of this team. And I think that's what I think that's what this season was already about before Cade Cunningham went down. It's obviously like after Cade went down, when the play-in picture was no longer, when it was no longer in sight, it became pretty apparent. But I mean, especially over the last couple of weeks, as some of these performances have transpired, it's just, we got to figure out where this is within our locker room. We have to isolate it and we have to eradicate it.
Yep, and the thing here to note, especially with the coaching and such, I know a lot of people want changes, is this. The Pistons, when you look at the 2014, and we're talking about restoration, they had 3 really, really, really good coaches, all kind of surrounding that 2004 squad, in Rick Carlisle, Flip Saunders, and Larry Brown. And Larry Brown came in as a coach who honestly is played a role similar to what, on some degrees, similar to what Dwayne Casey was brought in to do too. And that's kind of win now. And that's but philosophically, Larry Brown didn't come in realistically and teach them too many more X's and O's, but he taught them how to play the right way. That team first concept, that defense and things of that nature, and how they got after it, what they prioritized. That's what Larry Brown brought to the table. And with Dwayne Casey, if you got a bunch of team full of, young guys, a team that's still in flux, a team that is just realistically in year 2 of a rebuild, well, you're not to where you need to be yet. I know a lot of people look at the Philadelphia 76ers and some of the mild success they've had. And I say mild because they haven't won a championship for all of the process that they did, but that took years, bro.
Well, and even then, let's break down the process, because like people look at that on the surface, but let's look in actuality what they kept of all the players that they drafted. I believe at one point they had Michael Kidd-Gilchrist was one of their franchise players. They had Nerlens Noel was one of their top picks. He's on the Pistons right now. There was Markelle Fultz. He's the backup point guard in Orlando. There was Ben Simmons. He's currently a role player in Brooklyn. The only player that they got out of that process was Joel Embiid. Everyone else was traded for
and Maxey.
Signed.
And that's it.
Well, even then, they drafted Maxey after the process. They drafted him in 2020. Like, they drafted him when they weren't tanking. So, like, all that stuff that they were doing, they really only got one player out of it.
And they got Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons in years where they really got lucky in the lottery, lucky in the drafts and things of that nature. And which was interesting, because when you look at what Troy Weaver has already done in his 3 years being here, 2 years.
The Ben Simmons pick wrong.
2 years.
Not argue. That's just fact. But anyway,
it's like what, 3 years here, 2 years on the rebuild. His 6 draft picks, man, and I put this in the article. Shout out WoodwardSports.com, man. His 6 draft picks, I would take over the majority of those guys taken during the process years. What would you do? Joel Embiid, maybe like clearly number 1, and then what? Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren. Like, who during those process years are you taking over who the Pistons have drafted? Like, maybe the hardest ones to slot are Killian Hayes, Sadiq Bey, and Isaiah Stewart on that list, and I'm taking them over the majority of the guys that Philadelphia went with. It's going to be Joel Embiid and then the Pistons 6, and then whoever else Simmons can be slotted after him.
Hold
and
on,
his
Kool-Aid, because I
weirdness.
did forget an important name in the Philly process. I can't believe I forget it. I'm such an idiot. Jahlil Okafor.
Oh, you former Piston great?
Yeah, Pistons legend, Jahlil Okafor. Bench rider from our first year we were tanking, Jahlil Okafor.
That's
You
the
know,
process, ladies and gentlemen, and that took years, man.
and yeah, man, and it's just like the reality in like in like we talk about like how much better Orlando looks than the Pistons this year. They've only won 6 more games. And the reason why is because they have their number 1 pick healthy and available. Isn't it amazing like how much that helps? Like having your all class style consensus number 1 pick talent available on the court. Isn't that
Oh, you
something
mean
that
that
helps?
team that Pistons beat with and without Cade Cunningham, even though that number 1 pick was still on the court?
By the way, they've beat the it's so weird. Orlando's like they've lost to us multiple times, but they've beaten Boston 3 times.
How do you
I don't
explain
get
that?
it. They're the Boston Celtics Reapers. But for some reason, when they face a team that's like, it's all these young teams, man. Whenever they play like these big, it's like these like hype matchups, they're ready to go. And I
Yeah.
guess everything else, it's like, wait, we have to try.
But look, bro, we were there on in the building, opening night, Woodward Pistons representing, and we saw what it was, and yes, that's the difference. That's holistically the difference. Their number 1 pick is playing currently. Our number 1 pick is not playing. Even though people want to say Cade got off to a slow start to the season, in that Orlando game, it was due to the things that he was doing
Yeah,
that ultimately led to the win in that game.
right. Yeah, 100%. And
I feel like we covered a lot, bro.
we did, man. And
covered
I
a
mean,
lot.
listen, this is just scratching the surface, man. I mean, I mean, with Kool-Aid and Murph, I mean, obviously, I know we just did a whole lot of Pistons because that's our love. That's what we do. But we're going to be doing a lot more than that here, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking all things
This is
Lions. We're going to
fun
be,
stuff.
in the summer, we're going to be taking some forays and some quick dips and talking the Tigers. We're going to be talking all things NBA. And we're just going to be goofing around talking about whatever we want here, man, because this is Kool-Aid and the Murph.
That's
And that's
right.
what we do. We're
I
here
like
for
this.
shenanigans and bananigans.
In pajamas, man.
And pajamagans. Oh my gosh.
Man, not while I'm drinking water, bro.
Oh my gosh. But with that, man, thank you all so much for tuning in and listening to Kool-Aid and the Murph, the 2nd episode. We will come back to you guys as soon as we possibly can. If you like this, be sure you like this video, subscribe to Woodward Pistons, and also go give us a follow on our respective social media platforms. My guy Kool-Aid at DetroitKoolAid and at
Yes,
Sean
sir.
Halfcourt to catch the latest and greatest of what we got going on. But with that, folks, thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next time on Kool-Aid and the Murph, baby.
Hey. I like that. I like that, man. We're gonna have to make a song, Sean.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna have to make a song, man. I'm gonna cook up a beat. We're gonna have to record the whole process, man.
Oh
And
yeah.
we're gonna really do this thing. It's gonna be dope. We're gonna have an intro song. It's gonna be amazing. We're gonna you know what? We're gonna have to get Chuck involved somehow too.
We just we make a music video. We just FaceTime Chuck in.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Oh my God. See you guys later.
Hey, till next time, y'all.